This Famicom game opens with rapidly flashing lights FYI, just a few, not as intense as Metal Slater Glory though. Here, instead of explosions, the flashing represents lightning. The vampire awakens. Here we have Reigen Dōshi, a 1988 release developed by Marionette and published by the record label Pony Canyon. Marionette is also responsible for Dr. Chaos, the NES port of Pool of Radiance, and most of Coconuts Japan's Pachio-kun series. The player controls a Taoist priest and Kung Fu master. That is, the Taoist priest and Kung Fu master are the same person. The red guy following us is our buffoonish disciple, Mon Choi. At the beginning in RPG tradition, you can name the Taoist hero whatever you want. Let's call him Cow. This blue man informs Master Cow that the town is overrun with Kyonshi that have trapped everyone in the backs of their houses. Doka tasuke dashite kudasai. Lucky for them, Cow is a master Kyonshi fighter. Well, as much of a master as the player controlling him anyway. Reigen Dōshi consists of 8 different side-scrolling levels, each a dark, dilapidated Chinese village. Though graphics are reused, each town features a unique appearance and layout, generating a strong sense of gothic decay and ruin, with crumbling shacks, bones on the floor, and talismans on the walls, standing side by side with luxurious mansions whose waxed floors reflect the pillars supporting their cavernous ceilings. Republican China was a land of contrasts. You want to find the local temple first, as this is where you can heal after each fight. Upon arrival, though, every temple will have at least one Kyonshi hopping around, fighting in front of a Buddha image. Seems blasphemous somehow. That's Samsara Wheel. The limited color palette makes every character and many environments look cool and stylized, though I have no idea why Cow has a frog face, or why Man Choi is wearing a tracksuit. Reigen Dōshi features 6 varieties of Kyonshi as regular enemies, each with a different appearance and attributes. Every Kyonshi hops towards Cow and tries to stab him with their claw-like fingernails, but the different heights, speeds, and health bars do make a difference. These big fat guys, for example, move slowly. However, their blows inflict a lot of damage, and they can tank a lot more hits than their brethren. I always had the toughest time with these shorter Kyonshi. They might look silly pogoing around like frogs, but a higher speed and smaller hitbox compensate for their lower health. In his war against the Kyonshi, Cow does not begin with an impressive arsenal of attacks. He can kick, punch, jump, duck, and kick or punch while jumping. Kicks have a longer reach than punches, but are slightly slower. The bar on the right shows the Kyonshi's health, and the bar on the left, Cow's. If your bar goes from all pink to all blue, it's game over. Beat up a Kyonshi until its bar is empty though, and Cow immolates it, fire being one of the few reliable ways to truly kill a Kyonshi, and the gate or doorway at the far right of the area opens up. Clearing the Kyonshi out of every room of a given house, graveyard, or park leads to a reward. In most cases, this means approaching the villager who had been cowering in the back room to receive an item. This pink woman, in a somewhat incongruous cheapao and heels, says there's a terrifying Kyonshi in the cave at the end of town, as opposed, I guess, to the ordinary non-terrifying Kyonshi. Apparently, people say that to break the seal and enter the spirit world where this Kyonshi lives, we'll need the 3 orbs of jade forged from dragon's tears. We're lucky she was here to explain. Like every other asset, Reigen Dōshi reuses the villager sprites over and over, and these pink women are the rarest. Most of the time you have monks, old men, or peasant women, so someone urbane definitely stands out. Attaining all 3 jade orbs from each town is our main objective. Must have been a lot of sad dragons. Upon defeating the Kyonshi carrying the orb, the monster drops it directly. No meeting with a villager necessary. The orbs refill your health, and once 3 are united, break the seal on the boss's lair. Defeat the boss and the curse is lifted, completing the level. Every level features its own introductory cutscene, all of which amount to about the same thing. Kyonshi have overwhelmed our town, please help us. Reigen Dōshi uses a password system. After each village, the guy who briefed you on the situation at the beginning thanks you and tells you the password to continue from your current point. On the Game Over screen, your assistant also tells you a password, in case you're too frustrated or stayed up until 4 a.m. like me and need to quit. Hitting the A button outside buildings informs us what the building in question is: a temple, a dojo, the boss's lair, an empty area, the location of a jade orb, or simply a den of Kyonshi. Let's get a few things straight. Wikipedia calls Reigen Dōshi a beat-em-up, but that's nonsense. This is an early fighting game. You take on opponents in one-on-one battles. In a beat-em-up, you face mobs of enemies coming from all directions. Yeah, fighting games and beat-em-ups are closely related, like pillbugs and sowbugs, but they're not interchangeable. Second, surprisingly, FCI released this game onto the NES in 1990 under the title Phantom Fighter. The Japanese and US releases seem to be largely identical. Most of the dialogue, by the way, is a straight translation. The most noticeable graphical changes appear in the title screen and the end credits. But check out the Game Over screens. The Japanese and English versions use different portraits for the player character and his sidekick. Both versions look cool, the sepia tone matching the hero's in-game sprite and recalling the earthy colors of Falcom's later Xanadu. The original theoretically depicts the likenesses of actors Lam Ching-ying and Ricky Hui. This, you see, is a movie adaptation. Reigen Dōshi is the Japanese title of the film we English speakers call Mr. Vampire, the influential 1985 horror comedy about a Taoist priest who wields a combination of martial arts and magic to battle a Kyonshi. Specifically this Kyonshi, the deceased father of a businessman named Yam. If you haven't seen Mr. Vampire, highly recommended. Everything you could want from schlock. No brains, all entertainment. The movie resulted in at least 5 sequels. Lam Ching-ying played the same Unibrowed vampire-fighting Taoist priest in a number of movies that aren't technically Mr. Vampire sequels too, including Vampire vs. Vampire, which pits him against a European-style vampire. But Vampire vs. Vampire is 1989. Mr. Vampire 4 came out in December 1988, so I suspect that Paragon Films wanted the Famicom Reigen Dōshi to promote that film specifically. FCI must have had the US rights to the video game, but not Mr. Vampire, so they changed a few character sprites and names. The weird thing is that the Japanese release is obviously supposed to star Master Kao, the hero from the film, but you can name him whatever you like, whereas the English release names him Kenshi and gives no option to change it. Finally, let's be clear about these Kyonshies we're fighting. Kyonshi is the Japanese word for what in Mandarin are called Jiangshi, a monster somewhere between a vampire and a zombie. Because of rigor mortis, these reanimated corpses can no longer move their limbs and so hop instead of walk. The Kyonshi's tremendous physical strength renders it highly dangerous despite this hindrance. Whereas European vampires tend to be intelligent and suck blood, the Kyonshi are usually mindless powerhouses out to drain victims' chi. Dracula is a malicious mastermind. Old Man Yam is more like a rabid dog. Both are aristocratic, though. This is why filmmakers and cartoonists almost always portray Kyonshi dressed up as Qing mandarins, because everyone knows the nobility lived by stealing the labor of the peasants, in some way sucking their life force away, and now that feudalism is over, sensible people don't complain when you point out how obviously unjust and crooked the old masters were. Here in the States, a lot of people apparently feel sexually attracted to aggressive, ancient, blood-sucking corpses, and this is definitely also true in Japan. But Phantom Fighter only features one cute, lovable Kyonshi you might root for. No, these Kyonshi are mindless, disgusting monsters that need to be exorcised. Which is what you'll be doing in Phantom Fighter. The title is accurate. The game is 95% fighting Kyonshi, 5% managing the logistics of fighting Kyonshi. Though mindless, the Kyonshi are not necessarily weak. Sure, if you crouch, taller Kyonshi can no longer damage you, but you also can't move, so some good that does. The Kyonshi might stop on top of you and wait for you to stand. Before you develop a sense for how the Kyonshi move, they can put in a lot of damage. The instruction booklet advises striking, then retreating, then striking again. Ideally, you want to hit the Kyonshi in such a way that it falls over so that it can't jump onto you, but I never noticed a point in their hopping cycle where a blow would reliably knock them back. It happens most often with these pink Kyonshi, so I'd say they're the easiest to handle. You must suffer some hardship. Your happiness depends on your outlook. Whatever, just give me the scrolls, old man. Later fighting games usually involve so much strategy and such complex control schemes, they're like rapid-fire chess matches where your character wields an overwhelming arsenal of abilities. Phantom Fighter, predating Street Fighter II, does not. But when you free a villager from rampaging Kyonshi, they can provide several types of tools. Your inventory is displayed at the top of the screen in the third gray box from the left. Life is a give and take. I will give you a talisman. What should I take from you? Quick! Punch him before he robs us! How tragic life can be! If you're acquainted with East Asian horror media, you're probably familiar with these magic pieces of paper. Stick a talisman onto a Kyonshi to temporarily freeze the monster, then get in a few blows before it shakes off the magic. If Master Cow as opposed to Manchoi is carrying the talisman, if a Kyonshi hits him, there's a chance the talisman will break. In the movies, a properly written talisman will freeze a Kyonshi for centuries. Some talismans are weaker than others, though, and some vampires are stronger than others. Another item is a mirror, or tomten as they call them. European vampires don't have reflections, but Kyonshi can see themselves, and that horrifies them. Or maybe it's that mirrors are magic, or reflect light? Depends who you ask. The mirror only knocks the Kyonshi back, meaning it's usually useless. Worse, the Kyonshi can hit you and break the mirror quite easily. I expected the Peachwood sword would be a much more effective weapon, but it does less damage than Cow's martial arts. The only advantage is it has a slightly greater reach. Oh, like the talisman and the mirror, Kyonshi break the sword easily too. In the films, these swords tend to be more effective than this. Unfortunately, there too they break easily. It's not that the swords are brittle, but that Kyonshi are strong. The final item, the bell, is the least intuitive. You can only attain a bell in the second town and fifth town. An old man mentions that the spirit of a lonely girl startled him in the graveyard, so he dropped the bell. These same two towns contain one building each, housing a tiny blue Kyonshi that won't attack you. Quite mysterious. The English instruction booklet calls this Kyonshi Konshi and indicates it's an undead child. Seemingly unrelated to the Konshi, the second town and fifth town also both have a ghostly flame hovering around outside their graveyards. Given your speed relative to the ghost, this could never happen unless you let it, but if the Hitodama touches Manchoi, whoops, there he goes. Ordinarily, there's no reason to enter the graveyard. The first segment contains a Kyonshi you can battle beneath the haunting starlight, shining dim over graves receding into the shadows, but the next area is empty. Once the ghost takes our apprentice, though, she'll manifest in the second room. In the movie, her name is Jade, and she possesses Cow's other apprentice, Chao Sang. But here, Cow only has Manchoi. Jade flies around, occasionally launching her head at you. This also happens in the movie. In fact, similar spirits appear in Mr. Vampire 3, Mr. Vampire 4, and Vampire vs. Vampire. As the first enemy you can encounter who gives you a reason to jump while attacking, Jade is a memorable challenge by Phantom Fighter standards. Defeat her, and Manchoi, all embarrassed, gives Cow the old man's bell. Ring this bell in front of the Konshi, and it'll follow you. Next time you go into battle, the player controls the Konshi instead. We're using a child's corpse as a weapon. He who fights monsters. Yeah, this doesn't work well. Like most children, the Konshi can barely inflict any damage in hand-to-hand combat against a vampire. After the Konshi dies, seemingly ascending into his next incarnation, the bell vanishes too. So the bell proves almost as useless as the other items, yet finding and using it is still probably the most interesting thing that happens in Phantom Fighter. Ringing bells to control Kyonshi is also from the movies. The lore about bells and vampires shunning light probably originates with corpse driving. During the Qing, bosses would work their migrant workers to death. Some things still haven't changed. To prevent the spirits of the dead from becoming homesick, the workers' families would hire corpse drivers, who would supposedly use magic to reanimate the bodies, just enough to guide them hopping back to their hometown for burial. They traveled only at night, ringing bells to warn people away from the spooky and potentially dangerous corpses. I assume that disease was a greater concern than vampires, though. Incidentally, the inaugural issue of the Journal of the Chuang Communist Collective opens by using the Kyonshi as a metaphor for modern China. Nothing is left today but dead generations united in their separation, shambling through the fire and the dust. The child Kyonshi comes from Mr. Vampire 2! Well, kind of. A 1985 Mr. Vampire ripoff called Hello Dracula featured a child Kyonshi, and then the next year Mr. Vampire 2 also featured one, so in only a year the original was copying the copycats. In Mr. Vampire 2, a little girl mistakes the child Kyonshi for an illegal immigrant, and keeps the vampire hidden in her closet as like a pet. While this specific sequence is amazing, Mr. Vampire 2 is overall much worse than the first one. Surprisingly, Vampire vs. Vampire takes a cue from Phantom Fighter, giving its Unibrowed Taoist hero a little child Kyonshi as a sidekick. Maybe Lam Ching-ying liked this game, I don't know. Time flies like an arrow. Please hurry. If we stay as we are, many will be sacrificed to Kyonshies. The final and most useful items are the Ancient Scrolls. They receive their own box separate from the battle items and jade orbs. Weird that there are hundreds of ancient scrolls floating around. I would have thought they were rare antiques. Most towns contain a dojo where Master Cow can learn new techniques. None of them charge money, but that doesn't mean training is free. You need to fork some ancient scrolls over to the sensei for you two to train from, effectively making scrolls both EXP and money. In addition, Master Cow must prove to the bouncer that he is worthy of the dojo by, what else? Answering trivia questions! These can seem relevant enough. You'd only know the answer is bird's blood from the films. Yeah, they kill a lot of chickens. Other questions seem to be nonsense. What is the famous Chinese newspaper? The correct answer to this one is wall poster. I suppose this is a reference to how the Chinese Communist Party would put up propaganda posters. You might object that that's too anachronistic given that Phantom Fighter is set in Republican China, but sometimes the guard asks about Ultima or the name of George Bush's dog, so. The dojo trivia seems to be mostly the same in Japanese and English, but when I played Reigen Dōshi, I didn't encounter anything about George Bush. It doesn't mean it isn't there, but it probably isn't. One more obvious difference is that the English version calls each level Town 1, Town 2, and so on, where Reigen Dōshi actually names each level. I don't know if these names have any particular significance, like whether they might refer to real locations or be puns or something. Aside from having to read the same dialogue text for the 1000th time that takes too long to scroll because you foolishly set the text speed to medium, the main disadvantage of game overs is that you lose every item you collected, including half of your scrolls. So be careful and fight cautiously. It's advised you spend some time grinding to learn each dojo's abilities before freeing the town and moving on. Some of these are pricey too, but you don't need every ability to come into your own as a Phantom Fighter. Gathering skills, Cow becomes a lethal speed demon. I almost feel bad for these stiff, brainless zombies. Almost. If he learns Mirage Move in the first town, Mirage Walk in the third, and Mirage Thrust in the fourth, Cow can both move and strike while squatting and holding his breath. Holding your breath, you see, prevents Kyonshi from detecting you, since most of them are blind, and all of them in Phantom Fighter. Call it playing dirty, but these abilities combined allow you to cheese any fight against a tall Kyonshi. The punks can't bend over to attack Cow anymore. They can still occasionally strike him by accident. Increasing Cow's abilities and speed is essential because the Kyonshi also become stronger and more numerous. By the 5th town, you have to survive 4 of them in a row to attain Jade Orbs. The 6th town is the first, with 0 chance for filler or grinding, with only a temple and battles for the Jade Orbs. The 8th and final town is even harder, with no temple, 15 Kyonshi, and then the final boss, who is also guarded by 4 additional Kyonshi. It's great of you to have come here, overcoming the rough seas of this controlled society. Your final enemy is just in front of you. Kenshi, fight! Destroy the evil and save our society. What? Most of the bosses are also variants of regular Kyonshi, like this one who throws so many knives. But a few stir up the formula, like the bearded flying boss of the 4th town. This is one of the occasions the mirror is helpful, knocking him to the ground before he has a chance to fly and attack. So far as I know, this guy has no basis in any of the movies. You have beaten half of them at last, haven't you? A delightfully pink villager introduces the final boss is a witch named Obo. We fight her and her Kyonshies in their enormous mansion. They've basically leveled the rest of the town. Obo might be based on the villain in Mr. Vampire 3, a witch who uses the maggots she keeps in her throat to heal her men's wounds. Her magic is weak against urine and chicken blood. This red demon woman teleports and throws fireballs. Our Master Cow doesn't resort to urine, however. Martial arts are sufficient to kill this fiend. Among the many shadowy cemeteries, mineshafts, and dilapidated ruins, the peasants have to live hiding in the shadows of their corpse-strewn former homes. Phantom Fighter depicts something close to a zombie apocalypse scenario. The 7th town looks like it's been shelled, and the overwhelming brown makes the scene still bleaker. While Obo is directly controlling Kyonshi in the final town, it's unclear if this means Obo is controlling all the Kyonshi we've been fighting. Either way, you'd think the Republican military, or a warlord or something, would send troops to take out the spreading demonic infestation. Then again, the films show that regular guns are usually ineffective against Kyonshi. Maybe that's why the 7th town looks so bombed out. The military tried. For all we know, the governor sent Cow in after these modern methods failed. Kenshi's long fight is now over. Evil has disappeared, and peaceful nights have been returned to the people. Kenshi left by himself for a faraway land with sandstorms raging. This is one of Phantom Fighter's few departures from Reigen Dōshi. The same lines about sandstorms end Reigen Dōshi, but first Cow and Manchoi have a heart-to-heart conversation. Cow explains that his ancestors used to be able to control dragons, so he needs to depart to continue his training, to live up to them. "Sensei, please take me with you." "Absolutely not. The demon might soon be resurrected again. Next time, you will defend the people." But... It's okay. Experiencing many things on this journey with me, you're ready, I think. Day after day, you've shown nothing but diligence. You've grown into a splendid companion. These lines are probably more emotional than any scene in the Mr. Vampire films. Why did they cut them from the North American version? Perhaps Manchoi will never see Cow again. Mr. Vampire 2 implies that the Unibrowed Taoist died as he lived, fighting vampires. This guy is still kicking, though, so presumably Cow had at least one child. Phantom Fighter depicts Kenshi bowing, then the credits roll. This is another of the few regional differences. Reigen Dōshi's credits show the Kyonshi smiling, holding toy versions of Manchoi and Master Cow. Was this whole story the vampire child playing? Is the vampire child a stand-in for the child presumed to be playing the game? Why is he drawn in a super deformed style, alien to the rest of the aesthetic? The Kyonshi seems to have been a major part of the marketing of Reigen Dōshi, since a cutesy child Kyonshi is front and center on the box art too. Kids must have liked the character. Along with the animation, the coolest part of Reigen Dōshi is the music. So, appropriately enough, the most interesting member of the development team is the composer and writer Tadakoro Hironari, a colorful musician and digital pornographer. Tadakoro's website, Ray Record, continues to sell his 2 albums, Maid-san Best and Maid-san Best 2, though both are sold out, in addition to 2 memoirs about the eroge industry. Judging from the blurbs on the book sales pages, Tadakoro-san hops straight from Famicom writing and music to porn writing and music. His last Famicom soundtrack is in the 1993 title Pachio-kun 5, perhaps the most lovingly packaged pachinko simulation ever. Meanwhile, his final credit with Pachio-kun's publisher, Coconuts Japan, is the 1994 PC Engine remake of Sotsugyou Shashin and Miki, originally two computer games developed by Cocktailsoft and sold as a bundle. Working with FNC and in 1995 founding his own game company, Stoneheads, Tadakoro went on to have a prolific career in eroge, including such classics as Seek, Female Slaves in the Basement, Dengeki Nurse 2, more sexy, and Fushigi Densha, reportedly a very weird one. He remained active until at least 2012 when, combining his two talents, he composed the soundtrack and wrote the scenario for a final porn game called Byoin Sodom. It appears to involve terrifying men wearing licky kissy lip masks? Sadly, Tadakoro died in 2018. Not sure who's still updating the Ray Record Twitter. Moriyama Yuji is a prolific animator, involved in anime including Urusei Yatsura, Gunbuster, and Bleach. While working on Urusei Yatsura, he became acquainted with Mamoru Oshii himself, illustrating that renowned filmmaker's 1984 manga, Todo no Tsumari, though Oshii wasn't a renowned filmmaker yet. The copyright-ignoring 1986 film Project Eiko marked Moriyama's first leading role in a project. It involves a love triangle between three schoolgirls, Eiko, Biko, and Siko, and an alien invasion. Not only an animator, Moriyama also was one of the writers, although in his audio commentary he claims there was no screenplay, just him and the director brainstorming some of a plot, and then improvising a bunch of nonsense in storyboards. According to what seems to be his Twitter, Moriyama received the COVID vaccine in June. Good for him. I'm not certain if this is the same Moriyama Yuji credited as animator in Reigen Dōshi, but if so, that would explain why what was probably intended as a quick movie tie-in features such standout character animation. Kinda weird hopping from a feature film to a cash grab Famicom game with Marionette. Overall, Phantom Fighter is too repetitive. Either there should be more enemy variety, or the game should be shorter. There were a few other Famicom titles that combined fighting games and light RPG elements, such as Hissatsu Dōjō Yaburi in 1989. This one was released by Sigma, the same developer as Time Zone. When you compare them to the competition, you appreciate the lovely music and Master Cow and the Kyonshies' detailed movements much more. Phantom Fighter does not resemble Mr. Vampire narratively. Analogous to the comedy horror films that inspired it, the dark setting and high stakes contrast with goofy dialogue and these almost slapstick battles. So, tonally, if not narratively, Phantom Fighter is faithful after all. Better than the standard video game movie tie-in, that's for sure. One more thing before I go. On the internet, some people claim that another Famicom game, Kyonshies 2, is an adaptation of a different Mr. Vampire film, but otherwise unrelated to Phantom Fighter. Let's put this canard to rest. Kyonshies 2 is an adaptation of the movie Kyonshies 2, part of a series of Taiwanese vampire films known in English as Hello Dracula, and unrelated to their obvious inspiration, Mr. Vampire. Even IMDb includes a poster for Mr. Vampire 2 on their page for Hello Dracula 2. Whoops. The Hello Dracula films are also not to be confused with the 2020 Korean television series entitled Hello Dracula. Hope that clears things up. Oh, that Master Cow! I hear YouTube likes it when people hit that thumbs up button to like the video, and also watching the video through to the end, so thank you for doing that. You can subscribe to my channel if you like hearing me talk, and follow me on Twitter, or check out my website, macrophones.com, or whatever, vampires! Next time on Famicom Adventures, a game from Namco. Been a while. It's an RPG.